Welcome back. Mike Brown is President Biden's choice to become Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. If the Senate confirms him, consolidation in the defense industrial base is one thing he will need to watch. Jerry McGinn is Executive Director of the Center for Government Contracting at George Mason University. He's former Principal Deputy Director for Manufacturing and Industrial Base at DOD, and he's writing about consolidation in Defense News. Jerry, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. What do you see across the landscape that Mr. Brown will walk into if the Senate confirms him for A&S?
Well, it's great to be back, Francis, and thanks for having me. Yeah, I think the selection of Mike Brown is a tremendous choice on a number of levels. For the M&A landscape, I think he is an experienced hand. He's been CEO of a major company in Silicon Valley. He's worked closely with members on the Hill as well as in the building for the last several years in the Defense Innovation Unit. So I think he's a really inspired choice. And I think he's a good signal that mergers and acquisitions will be conducted on reviewed on a case-by-case basis, as they have been under both Republican and Democratic administrations going forward.
The most recent case that's in the headlines, there are a number of them, but the highest profile one you reference in this piece, the Lockheed Martin proposed purchase of Aerojet Rocketdyne. You compare that to Northrop Grumman and Orbital ATK several years ago. What are the parallels that you see there, and what do those parallels bode, do you think, for the rest of the M&A landscape?
Great question, Francis. Yeah, it's a very similar transaction. Prior to the Orbital ATK Northrop Grumman transaction, there were two independent solid rocket motor producers, Orbital ATK and Aerojet Rocketdyne. And Northrop purchased Orbital ATK, and that was approved with a consent decree that made Northrop Grumman agree to be a merchant supplier for solid rocket motors going forward for 10 years. And Lockheed Martin, Aerojet Rocketdyne is a very similar kind of deal. The concerns raised by members of the launch providers, such as Boeing or Raytheon, are similar in both cases. So the government has to look at that to see what kind of impact it has on competition. The difference in this specific case is that Aerojet Rocketdyne has always been the weaker or the struggling rocket producer. Orbital ATK was stronger. So there's financial reasons for this merger that really strengthen the overall rocket provider kind of marketplace. So you're still going to have two competitors in this space, and I think the outcome is likely to be the same, which would be a consent decree for Lockheed Martin to make sure that they provide rocket motors to all the launch providers in the marketplace.
Regarding the broader landscape of M&A in the defense industrial base, you write in this Defense News piece, steady as she goes is the best course of action. That's based on your experience that you write. What does that look like in the context of the way the market, the way the landscape looks today, Jerry?
Yeah, great question, Francis. You see, there's a lot of emphasis now on Capitol Hill on both sides, actually, concerned about big tech, quote unquote, and companies that have become too big and concerning. And so there's been discussions on maybe we need to adjust antitrust rules, and I don't think that's the right approach. I mean, if members are concerned or the government's concerned about those kind of companies, they have other tools, such as Section 230, which has been discussed, and other kind of incentives that can do it. So I think how they review mergers is through the antitrust lens, and I think that should continue. We have robust examples of large and small transactions that have been adequately reviewed, and in some cases denied when there was a direct impact on competition. So I see the market is maintaining that. And the exciting thing about Mike Brown is that Mike is his focus on bringing in new companies to the defense industrial base. I think coming in the role of Undersecretary for A&S, he's got the opportunity to help those companies scale, help to really bring in new competitors through innovative efforts, scaling beyond the transactions authorities, so some of these newer companies can compete on larger programs.
You write here, Jerry, mergers and acquisitions are central contributors to the health of the aerospace and defense market. Are there enough of those small companies coming along underneath at the lower levels of the DIB to become candidates in the future to continue to perpetuate the mergers and acquisitions market?
That's precisely the issue. That's, again, why I'm excited about Mike, because we've almost had a new valley of death occur where you've got all these efforts at innovation through other transactions or other kind of contract vehicles, competitions that help companies get started, but then the key is getting them to scale.
Jerry, we have about a minute left. Are there enough small companies entering the bottom of the defense industrial base with all the efforts the Pentagon's put into that over the last several years to perpetuate the DIB the way that you suggest that it needs to be perpetuated in this piece?
Yeah, I think there are definitely, it's had an impact on the number of companies coming in. So, and I think that's very positive. The key now is to help companies, the successful companies, scale. We need more SpaceX's or Blue Origins, companies that make that transition. And I think having Mike Brown, who's worked with these companies in Silicon Valley and elsewhere at the helm, is really going to help build that industrial base and help refresh kind of the middle tier and even potentially larger companies in the defense industrial base. So I'm very excited to see what happens in the next 4 years.
Jerry McGinn, thanks very much for joining us. Great to have you back on the program.
Great to see you, Francis.